The future was better protected than the past.
Sick. And welcome to the Mind Your Movies podcast. I'm Ryan.
I'm Shane.
And today we're talking about the Sight and Sound's top 250 slash kind of most
Their
recognized or
greatest
notable
films of all
movies.
time list.
Yeah. A pretty cool list stacked with cool options.
Yeah. We each picked. Ryan picked Mirror, the Andrei Tarkovsky movie from 1975, and I picked La Jetée, which is our first short film uh, ever covered on the podcast, and our first slideshow. Pretty cool. But yeah, so we're gonna cover both those movies in depth. I think there'll be a lot to talk about, so it should be a fun conversation. There will be spoilers for those movies, so if you haven't seen them, I think we both would highly recommend both. So check them out and come back. And before we get into those, we're gonna do some recent recs without spoilers of some recent things we've seen recently that we would recommend, or maybe warn you to stay away from, depending on what Ryan chooses. All mine are good. I don't know about you.
Yeah, sometimes I throw a curveball in there. The thing is, I just watch so many new movies. Like just
Mm,
I just go to the theater all the time. So it's like if there's something that I'm like, you know what, these guys should stay away from it. I want to give you guys the heads up. So
gotcha.
none of
You
that
want
today, though. I got
to?
good
Okay,
stuff.
you got good stuff. Good. I also have good stuff. Do you want to start? Should I start?
I'll start
I
with that. If that's all
Yeah,
right.
I think I want to go last because I have a good transitional. Well, I kind of, yeah.
Nice. Well, this one could have been a good transition, but I'm just going to use it anyways. I watched Ivan's Childhood, which
Oh,
is
nice.
Tarkovsky's debut, I believe, right?
Well, this
Uh,
is hilarious. I watched The Steamroller and the Violin, which is Tarkovsky's thesis student film. So it's like it's I have seen most of his main movies. Haven't seen his last two. I'm kind of say I don't know. I'm saving him to be in the right mood. But I had never seen this, so I watched that, and then there you go, Ivan's Childhood. So yeah,
nice.
the Steamroller and the Violin is like 45 minutes long, and so it's I guess technically just barely feature length, but I mean, yeah, Ivan's Childhood is kind of his real like feature film debut.
Nice. Yeah, and Ivan's Childhood is pretty awesome. It's have you seen it, right? You said you've seen most all of
Yes,
his work.
I've seen this one, but it was years ago. But I remember it being great.
Yeah. So I mean, it's like this, it's a really great, I mean, it might be, well, it certainly is one of the best anti-war films I've ever seen, where it follows around a child uh
World
must be
War
World
II.
War II, yeah. And he's just hell bent on getting revenge, and it's the horrors that he's living through and all the stuff that goes on during that. And uh it's extremely well made. It does not feel at all like an amateurish movie, like whatsoever. And it's also just very uh stylized. It feels very um like it kind of feels like it fits actually pretty well into stylistically this episode that we have here with La Jetée and
Yeah,
so, which
and I
makes
think
sense in Tarkovsky.
I believe it came out in around 1962, which is when Logitech came out. But yeah, it's great. It's pretty incredible because also with the steamroller and the violin, like it does not feel like a student film. Like this is probably like the best student film ever made because it's like pretty incredible. I mean, also it's in color, which is interesting because then his first two feature, Ivan's Childhood and Andrei Rublev are both black and white. But Steamroller and the Violin has is really a great like coming of age story about this kid who plays the violin and he kind of gets bullied and there's a guy who works on a steamroller and they sort of form a friendship uh over this 45-minute film, and there's some really great like Tarkovsky-esque like poetic sequences where he even on his student thesis film he's already getting kind of poetic in ways that he would do obviously a lot more like later on, but also the color looks great. I think it was a restoration. It's on the Criterion channel, and I think actually it might be on the Ivan's Childhood Criterion Blu-ray. It might be like a bonus feature on that. I'm not sure about that though. But totally worth watching. It's only 45 minutes and it's pretty underseen because it's not like, you know, it's kind of in limbo of like it's kind of just a student film, but it's like it just feels like a real movie. It doesn't feel like a student film at all. So would totally recommend people check out The Steamroller and The Violin. It's short and really great.
Nice. I mean, hey, maybe that'll be my next watch after watching Ivan's Childhood, you know? Keep on.
Yeah, you have some longer ones in store because Andrei Rublev, Solaris, and Stalker are all pretty long.
Yeah.
And also, I think The Sacrifice is like 2.5 hours as well.
Yeah. Andrei Rublev, I was like, that does not seem like a today thing. So I put on Ivan's Childhood. Not today, but when I was gonna watch it, it was like
Yeah,
it's quite long. I do obviously want to watch it, and now after seeing both of these, both Ivan's Childhood and Mirror, I'm like, I'm even more in on all this, right? So looking
yeah,
forward to it.
nice. Yeah, it's Andrei Rublev is great. Honestly, yeah, I think you'll like it. Maybe it's too long though. It's definitely it's way more than 90 minutes. It might be twice as long as 90 minutes. Ryan's crying in the club right now.
Yeah, that's
Um,
all right. It happens, you know.
Yeah, there you go. All right. Well, there's the steamroller and the violin was gonna be my transitional thing, but I guess the episode is called La Jetée, so it would really just not be that good of a transition anyway, because we're gonna talk about La Jetée before Mirror. But yeah, okay, there was the little Tarkovsky segment.
Nice. Also, yeah, if anyone's wondering how we picked these names, by the way, um, it we don't usually have a logic on which one comes first, other than how the
But
portmanteau sounds. It's just how can we
yeah,
smash these two titles together for the best sound?
yeah. I think La Jetée is funnier than Mété.
Agreed, agreed. Yes. So that's the secret to how we pick which one comes first. It's just whatever portmanteau sounds better. We just go that order.
Yeah.
Anyways,
There's there's no rules. We do what we want.
yeah, yeah.
Sometimes it
Um,
works out. Sometimes it's like, oh, it's a direct like we did Memento Interstellar and it worked out like chronologically with Chris Nolan. The first movie came first, but if the title doesn't work, the portmanteau is comes first.
yeah, absolutely. Well, my next one that I watched was Sorcerer from 1977. This was a William Friedkin movie, and also one that I had not seen yet, but it's in the Criterion collection and all that. It's pretty highly acclaimed, and I finally got around to watching it, and it's awesome. This is have you seen this one, Shane?
Yes, I've seen Sorcerer and I've also seen the Wages of Fear, the movie it's based on.
Nice.
So both great movies. Would definitely recommend both.
Yeah, pretty cool. So like this band of like kind of degenerates that are living in South America. They're all like on the run from the law in different countries, and they get hired to move explosives in these extremely rickety, big, bulky trucks through the Amazon rainforest. But if the explosives move too much, they're just going to blow up. So they have to go over this like rickety bridge and all this stuff, and it's extremely intense. Uh, edge of the seat, like cushion gripping intensity. It's pretty awesome. So would highly recommend this one. Yeah, I was on
Yeah,
kind of a roll with some bangers this week, so there's another good recommendation for me.
yeah, that's a great movie. Definitely a good, really good thriller.
Yeah.
Cool. What else did I see? I watched I watched a couple bangers too. I watched The Color of Money, the Martin Scorsese's sequel to The Hustler, starring Paul Newman and Tom Cruise, and fantastic movie. Like this is, right before Last Temptation of Christ and then Goodfellas, and you can feel a lot of the Goodfellas style sort of. I mean, you can feel that also in like After Hours too. He's sort of
Mhm.
developing that like type of sort of kinetic like fast-paced style. But the way Scorsese shoots the pool scenes and everything is just great. And yeah, Newman's fantastic. 80s Newman, like The Verdict, great. Uh, So yeah, awesome movie. And The Hustler is also really good. But I don't think you have to see The Hustler to see this. Uh, you know, but it is a sequel, so it's probably good to see The Hustler first. But I had a long gap in between. And but yeah, great movie. Would definitely recommend it. Not one of like Scorsese's most like acclaimed movies, I feel like, but still pretty fantastic.
Awesome. Pretty cool. I haven't seen that one yet either, so good to put on the list. Um, well, the next one I have is actually a tour. Um,
A tour. What does that mean? That's the,
two for one. You
oh,
had two
okay.
recommendations here. I mean, it's really three recommendations, but I
It's
can't
a
recommend a
threer.
third. It's a threer. It's a trio.
Oh,
You know, that even sounds better. Um, this, uh, this is probably pretty well known to a lot of people, of course, but it is sort of on the older side. So I wanted to throw it in there as a recommendation, anyways, because the movies get a little bit longer, and I think a lot of people only know or have maybe only seen. It's certainly the most common or popular is The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. But I started the first two of Sergio Leone's Dollars trilogy, or the Man Without a Name trilogy, or whatever it's called, with A Fistful of Dollars from 1964 and For a Few Dollars More from 65. And they're both bangers. They're awesome. These are like really cool westerns. The thing that surprised me is that they're pretty self-aware and like pretty fun and like I kind of thought they'd be like really kind of more strictly serious, and they're definitely like on the more serious side, but they also lean into it a bit, and it's a
they're,
blast. They're both really fun.
yeah, and they're kind of like action movies. Like they're
Yeah,
they're not like super heavy.
yeah.
But yeah, so you haven't seen The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly yet.
Well, so this is gonna sound weird. I watched about an hour of The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I've been watching these with a coworker, and
Oh,
because school just let out, so we've been binging some movies together. So we watched the first two on a double feature one day. And then, like, 2 days later, he came over and we started The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. We had to pause it to do something, and we never ended up finishing that day. So I'm going to wait until I can watch the rest with him. But so far, it was awesome. But I can't recommend it because I've only seen a third of the movie.
okay.
But the first two, awesome. And the Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is almost exactly 3 hours. For a fistful of dollars is maybe 90 minutes or maybe an hour 40 or something like that. For a few dollars more, maybe like 2 hours and 10 minutes. So watching, I think a lot of people just jump in and just watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly because you don't need to watch them all. And it's certainly the most popular. But if you're like me and you're like, hey, a little intimidated by the 3 hour marker right there, instead, you can watch like 7 or 8 hours worth of movies and just start at the beginning. But it feels a little less intimidating because you're watching a 90 or 100-minute movie first.
Yeah. Yeah, that's fair. I'm glad you liked them. I haven't seen those in so long. And I remember thinking the first two were like just all right, and then loving The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly, which I do think Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is one of the greatest movies of all time. So yeah, that one is awesome. So I mean, you might I don't know, what do? You paused it? Like, do you restart from the beginning? Do you just pop I
I
mean, I feel
know.
like
It's weird.
you've got yourself in a real predicament here.
I know it's weird. It's unfortunate. So I don't know what we're gonna do when we get back to it, but we'll get back to it and we will watch it. It might be a little bit. I've kind of a busy summer coming up, but
No, hold off the wedding and watch The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. You can't. I mean, you got to have your priorities straight here, Ryan.
yeah, Shane's right.
It's-
All right, let me make a call real quick.
yeah, come on, push it back a week. You'll be fine. What's the big deal? You know.
Yeah, Shane gets
All
it.
right. Well, I have. Do you have anything else you wanted to mention?
No, go for it.
I just wanted to say, World Cup's been going on. It's generally been good, even though it seems like the game Argentina was completely rigged in favor of Argentina over Egypt yesterday. Watching that was kind of crazy. But I've generally enjoyed the World Cup. And I watched a documentary about Jamie Vardy because I was in a soccer mood. Jamie Vardy, great, from Leicester City, kind of the greatest Cinderella story of the Premier League when they won in 2016. And yeah, it's just a documentary about him. It's nothing groundbreaking, but it's pretty well made. And if you like soccer and if you like any of that kind of stuff, I would recommend it. It's on Netflix. It's called Untold. It's part of the Untold series that's like almost like the Netflix version of 30 for 30 with these like sports documentaries. And they are usually pretty good. So I enjoyed that. If anyone else has a little World Cup fever and they want to scratch the soccer itch, then this is one to go for. And then today I rewatched Heat.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Yeah. So just had some time today, threw it on and I was like, yeah, this is pretty awesome. One of the Al Pacino, just incredible. I will say the movie could be trimmed a little here and there. It's a long movie. There's a lot of subplots. There's a lot of side characters. We get one scene with them, and then you're like, uh, "What was up with this character?" You know what I mean? But overall, it's pretty amazing. Incredibly shot. The action sequences are great. So quotable. So yeah,
Well, you don't have to convince me that the movie needs to get cut down, but I that movie is awesome. I have no problem sitting through it, but I think a lot of movies, I think aiming for trimming down as much as you can. Generally, people might be able to trim a little bit more off their movies, but
yeah.
I don't
There's
know,
just
whatever.
a lot of side characters, but anyway, I have not read Heat 2. I love that Heat is not based on a book, and there's a novel sequel to the movie. And then I don't know if you saw the news, it's getting made. I mean, it's already been announced that the movie's in development, but the cast includes Leonardo DiCaprio, Christian Bale, and I think maybe Stephen Graham and Adam Driver potentially. But yeah, Leo and Christian Bale, and I believe this is almost a Godfather 2 type scenario where it's partially prequel and partially sequel. So it sounds incredible. I don't know if I'll be able to. I might just have to read the book. So yeah, that'll be sick.
That's awesome. I have not also read the book. I saw it at a bookstore, um,
That's awesome.
and it actually made me double check if the original movie was based on a book. And then I dug into it a little bit and realized what was going on. But I was like, I didn't, I would not have guessed that was based on a book. But anyways, obviously it's not.
Yeah,
But yeah, I'm looking forward to, yeah, I mean, Heat 2 is gonna be awesome too.
yeah. I mean, and I think the Leo and Christian Bale as the leads, yeah, it's gonna be awesome.
That's sick.
Cool.
Um,
So yeah, that's all I had to mention. Should we get into Logiteer?
let's do it. Yeah. So that's our little intro, just some recommendations, recent recs, we call them, because we're really good at naming things. Time for Logiteer.
Yeah, yeah. Logitech. This was my pick. Directed by Chris Marker from 1962. This is a short film. It's 20, I think 28 minutes long, 29 minutes long, I guess. And yeah, it's basically entirely you know, still images aside from one shot in sort of in the middle of the movie. And yeah, it's a dystopian sci-fi movie where there has been a nuclear holocaust and people live underground and this guy starts traveling back in time sort of through his memories, through his dreams and travels back in time. And yeah, it's pretty incredible, completely unique. I'm curious what your experience was watching it because I remember in our last full episode, you had never even heard of Logitech, so you didn't know what to
Yeah.
expect at all going into it. So I thought I'm curious, what did you think? Did you know it was going to be all still images, or you just hit play and then it just happened?
I just hit play. I was excited. Obviously, if you guys have been following the show for a while, Shane is pretty much my go-to movie recommendation person. Shane has a lot of great film knowledge, especially when it comes to some of the areas that I really like about film, like some of this more experimental stuff. And I didn't know this
Thanks.
was in that range. Yeah, of course. Anyways,
Pat myself on the back.
I did not really know this was going to be a part of that sort of kind of experimental. And I guess it's technically, at least in time frame and location, part of like the French New Wave, and it's certainly experimental
Mhm.
and all that stuff. So um, I haven't seen anything else that Chris Marker's done. Uh, so I really I had no idea what I was getting in for. I pressed play. Uh, as the movie started, I realized pretty quickly what was going on. There's like I think maybe the first shot is it's like zooming, it's like a zoom out or a zoom in. So it has a
It could
tiny
be.
bit of, you know, it's like you're not really sure what's going on right away.
Right. And it's a, I believe it's a wide shot of the titular Jetée, the
Yeah.
pier. And it's like the you can see the planes and the pier, but you don't really, yeah, you don't know exactly what's going on, I guess.
Yeah. And but like right away, it's black and white. It's this nice big open shot. It looks great. It looks gorgeous. Uh and then yeah, and then you get through a couple of shots and you start to realize that nothing's moving. And and I almost like right when I realized pretty much what was going on, which might have been slower than it needed to be. You know, I mean, I'm not the smartest, I'm not the sharpest tool in the shed all the time, but I was like pretty close to jaw dropping. I was like, holy crap, it's doing that. That's wild. It also pretty quickly reminded me of something that's not exactly this. Uh, and it's more along the lines, I guess, of like stop motion, but it's this movie called Time or fan edit, I guess, called Timekeepers of Eternity or The Timekeepers of Eternity, which is an edit of of one of those kind of bad Stephen King short series that came out in the 90s called The Langoliers. But what the person did to make this edit is they actually printed out every scene or every scene they cared about on like Xerox paper, right? Or like they Xeroxed it, it looked like. And and then they animated the paper. So it was all still shots, and you could tell that things didn't move. Sometimes it moved fast enough that it was like making motion and animated, right? But generally you could tell, and that was kind of part of it, right? Is that experimental style? And so I was reminded of that pretty quickly. And so, anyways, that was kind of my first reactions was just kind of like, what the this is awesome. And I was like, I was pretty thrown in right away. Once I knew that was happening, I can see people being if you go in not knowing anything about this and you're not really into the experimental stuff, you might just be like, what what the fuck did I just put on? What is going on? But I also imagine that not a lot of people are putting this on just on accident. But
Yeah. Yeah, nice. I'm glad that you had that experience with it. That's cool. And also we should note that it's a French movie, so the voiceover is in French, but Chris Marker also recorded an English voiceover. So it was kind of intended to be listened to in like whatever your native language is. He also did the same thing. I think he did other languages as well for Les Soleil, right? Is that, or Sans Soleil, um, which is kind of his other most famous movie. It's like a feature length documentary, sort of him traveling across the world and kind of an essay film, I guess. But yeah, so you can watch it in French with English subtitles or it with the English narration. So whenever I watched this the first time, I may have watched it in French. I don't remember, but I watched it in English this time, and I think it actually improved my experience, maybe just that I was able to focus on the imagery and I didn't have to be split between reading the subtitles because there is quite a lot of narration. Um, so I think it worked, but I know you watched the French and you said before recording that it didn't really hinder your experience, you thought.
yeah, I mean, yeah, I watched the French version, so I was reading the subtitles, but I did feel like, you know, I felt like pretty much there's always enough time to get through the subtitle. I mean, because it is kind of a slideshow. Like that's a really remedial way to say it, right?
Yeah,
But
I said that earlier, but that's
yeah,
a little bit of a silly way to describe
of course.
it.
But while something's on the screen, you know, I found myself having time to read the subtitles without missing anything that's going on. Obviously, being able to like not have to focus on the subtitles and kind of be able to dig in a little bit more to the imagery probably would have been better for me. But yeah, I mean, I found that doing the French version did not have. I didn't think any. I mean, I left it and I was like, I was just like shocked by the movie. It was awesome. I was in awe. I was ready to just slap a rating on it, and like I would
Nice.
say I think it's impossible to think that this hurt my opinion of it because the movie was just so awesome. But
Nice.
yeah,
Yeah,
I don't
cool.
know.
I think the first time I saw it, I was more like confused by it and maybe just trying to read the subtitles and understand what was going on. Like it was maybe just a little hard. And it is a little bit confused. Like it's just a unique experience. So, and there the dream and time travel, all those
Right.
aspects are super kind of abstract and they don't try to over explain any of it, which I actually like. I think it works better. But I think I enjoyed just being able to focus on the imagery. And there are so many great like shots and images in the movie that I appreciated watching the English narration.
Nice. Yeah, and it's short. It's only 20, is it 28 minutes or 26 minutes? It's in that
Yeah,
range.
yeah,
And so I mean, I can see myself, in the not too long future watching this in with the English version just to kind of see it again and get more from the imagery. But I think whatever people go in with, I don't think there's any wrong answer here. Um,
yeah,
which is nice. I'm happy that that's the case.
yeah. Uh, cool. I mean, yeah, it starts off, and I love that like the whole, experimental nature of it being these images does tie into the story where the very beginning, like this kid is like haunted by one image of the woman, which is on the poster, but it's about this one image and how I think it also is kind of how memories are of us, at least for me, like remembering things in images sometimes more than like imagining an entire scene playing out. Like sometimes I remember things more in just images than the way you'd watch a movie.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's interesting when the movie starts, right? From not having seen it before. Um, I would say, just thinking about the plot too, right? I was pretty shocked when I realized that it was, or when it says, that it's uh post World War III and it's nuclear uh fallout is everywhere and all that stuff. I didn't realize that was what was gonna, like, that was just like it's a 1962 like French New Wave movie. It's on the six, and I was like, oh, uh, cool. This is weird. And obviously, with them already talking about uh, uh, the woman at the beginning, I was like, what is going to happen with this? I was pretty confused, intrigued,
Yeah.
but yeah, I think it really captivated me, uh, pretty much right away, which was cool. Not
Nice.
just the style, like I said earlier, but also the plot. It was pretty
Yeah.
uh, intriguing.
Cool. Yeah. And it is really cool. Like it could kind of work in any time period, this kind of like sci-fi premise, but I feel like it is very of its time in the way that it has the Cold War nuclear anxiety, which was obviously there. I mean, it's still a real threat, but also is such a big thing during the Cold War and it's in the 60s, and but it's also post World War II, only less than 20 years after the end of World War II, where there was so much destruction in France, and they use a lot of imagery from that to show the destruction of World War III. So it's really like kind of very of its time, but also the with the unique style and the themes of like memory and all of that. It's kind of timeless as well. So yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. And in some ways, right, like the idea of a Cold War, right? We're certainly still in this era where like nuclear tensions are cause a lot of anxiety, right? We still get movies that relate to this and that appeal to this anxiety and help people relieve it, right? But so in that, I mean, I think there's an argument that like once nuclear weapons are created, there's never a time after where you're not in nuclear like anxiety, right? So there's also that where like that's a good topic to keep it timeless because it's hard to imagine a time when people are not fearing of nuclear weapons.
yeah, especially when there are constantly these wars and conflicts breaking out, and it could boil over into real calamity, worldwide calamity. Like you know, but yeah, so it's a real thing. But it was especially big, I think, in the 60s.
Yeah,
So
definitely.
so yeah, and then basically the world has been, you know, there's nuclear fallout everywhere. Everyone has to live underground. I love the minimalism of the design, but also the dinginess of it all, and just some of the images of like the guy with those weird goggles on, or the image, the way he does the time travel, where he lays in this hammock with this weird face mask on with the like wires coming out of it, like just really great imagery. And it doesn't, I mean, clearly it wasn't made on like a super big budget, but you do get that like it's kind of a post-apocalyptic but dingy future type of a vibe, and it does actually, you know, show that pretty well.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it also, in some ways, is like pulling from the, post World War II. Uh, well, this movie, it's about this prisoner, and it says that there's prisoners before him that they tested on too. That's getting this test done, right? And so it obscures, he does, you don't get to see his face. He has these weird probes sticking out of the goggles and stuff, right? And I think in some ways that's also pulling from the like the fears and anxieties of human experimenting on prisoners that happened during World War II, right? All throughout the world.
Hmm.
But yeah, because I mean,
Yeah.
the image is it's very spooky. I feel like where like he's covered with his head is covered with this thing, and you don't get to see his face, and it has these probes. It feels very like medical, but also very like uh I guess like dystopian, just because you don't get to see him, right?
Yeah, and very like DIY kind of
Yeah,
in
true.
some ways. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also it's very subjective too. And with like there are things where there's the narrator at one point. I don't know if it was different in the French actually. It might have been slightly different. But at one point, like he, he's in his memories sort of, and they say, oh, they're in a garden. He remembers there were gardens,
Yeah.
and then it also says at one point, they probably give him another shot. Like
Yeah.
we're inside of his dream memory thing, and it's like, oh well, this probably happened. It's not this omniscient narrator, and it kind of adds um to the subjectivity of the filmmaking.
Yeah, I agree. And there's a quote that I wrote down from the French one that's not quite exactly what you're talking about, but I think it does show a similar idea, which is the narrator says some believed themselves to be victors, talking about World War III, and it shows this idea that like perception is pliable, and people are one person's perception of reality is not someone else's. I mean, I think it's also maybe obviously a kind of anti-war message of there's not really any victors in a war, especially a
Hmm.
nuclear one. But still, too, like one person's perception might be totally different than someone else's. Obviously, again, with war, it's a little bit trickier because, yeah, if yeah, I don't know, whatever. The
Yeah,
one
yeah.
use,
No,
yeah, yeah.
no, I see what you're saying. Yeah. And okay, one thing I think that's cool about this movie is I think this is like a liminal movie
Yeah.
where it's kind of showing memories as uh they're not you're a place between the past and the present where you're not actually in the past, but in a way you're not in the present either. And when you have this horrible situation, it's like he wants to almost recede into his memories, and in that way it's also like fantasy. It's not completely fantasy because it's based in reality, but it's not real either. So it's a liminal space between past and present, and between fantasy and reality. And like in this dystopian world, he like wants to go to that space, and he wants to have these memories, and he has these kind of, it's very unclear like what's going on. Is he really going, because they mentioned like they want to go back in time to get food and resources to survive, but then like it makes it seem like he's kind of in his own memories in a lot of ways. And so it's like kind of unclear what's real and what's not. But yeah, and that in that way, it's kind of like I feel like way ahead of its time, in that like liminal spaces is like this huge thing that people are into now. And like this is like OG liminal space, liminal
Yeah.
themes.
Yeah. And you can imagine the tunnels. I think there's like a couple shots where you get to see a bit of the tunnel system that he's in, right? And that's kind of a liminal space in
Mm,
today's like sort of, you think of like back rooms and things like that as like liminal spaces today, being these places between, right? These places of transition. And I think tunnels fit right in there, right? Um,
yeah.
Also, to your point, like I think there's like I don't think it's entirely, seeing it one time. I don't think it's entirely clear if he even actually time travels. It's like, is he just digging into memories and then kind of going crazy because of these experiments? And uh maybe that's actually what they're doing and not he's not time traveling, right? They even say that like the people before him just went mad, right? Like or something along those lines,
Mm.
right? And so maybe that's actually what we're seeing, you know?
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That definitely would make sense. And yeah, and then at the end, there's sort of um, the future people who like
Mm-hmm.
invite him to come to the future, but then he prefers to stay in his past. And then obviously there's the incredible ending of him going back to the pier from the beginning, where at the beginning we didn't mention, but they see a man get killed, and that's part of the reason he remembers this is because there was that trauma, and then we realize that the man who was killed is actually himself, who his older self, who's gone back in time to that time. Just a great like twist ending as well. Kind of cool that like a lot of experimental movies, it's very and this one is super abstract and experimental, but also it has like a really interesting narrative that's kind of entertaining on a just narrative storytelling level as well.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think there's a lot to be said about like the work of like Stan Brakhage and Beala Gialli, who like have sort of maybe on the more extreme end of like experimental stuff where some of it there's not much plot going on and it's extremely interpretive. And this like this is in a way also just a full story, right? Like if this was told without as much experimental style and stuff, like I could see a full movie here being made, right? And actually,
Yeah.
this gets made into, or kind of, right? It gets like
Yeah.
remade as 12. Is it 12 Monkeys?
Yep.
Have you seen that?
I have not recently, but I have seen it, and it's very good. It's directed by Terry Gilliam, and Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt are in it, and yeah, very good movie. Definitely. I mean, it's a little bit out there, but it's more of a standard, uh, you know, movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's cool. I when I saw, reading up about La Jetée to talk about it, I saw that it was kind of remade into this 12 Monkeys. And I was like, oh dang, I should try to watch that before we record. That'd be so cool to be able to talk about that too. And I didn't get around to it, but that does sound awesome. I'm excited to dive into it.
Yeah.
Anyone out there that's listening, if you guys liked La Jetée and you didn't know that, or if you just like us, if you like talking, hearing about it because maybe you haven't seen it yet, 12 Monkeys might even be a good intro. If you're like, maybe you don't care as much about the experimental stuff, maybe you just jump in and watch that. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, you could start like that. It is a good movie. So yeah, I guess that was, it's very up to interpretation of what happens exactly, but I think part of it is like about our sort of desire to go back into the past and to get like our, the pull of nostalgia and memory and stuff like that, and how that can, we that can be in some ways better, like better than reality sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think here's a sort of modern pull from this movie, which is, after reflecting on it and thinking about that specifically with like nostalgia, um, and the fact that, in many ways, this is just a group of the powerful people that are left in the world, right? Controlling and manipulating and experimenting on uh, people that are left, right? The regular people that the I guess prisoners, but like they this guy represents the everyday person, I assume, right? And the post World War III world, and so they're just experimenting on these people to pry on their nostalgia of the world that was once around, right? And in some ways, right, is that not what corporations are doing today? Just trying to pry on our nostalgia of everything to be able to take our money and to take our like everything, right? Take our identities from us and all these things from us, so that everything that we do, we just see something and we're like, oh yeah, that was cool one time, and now you're stuck, right? Uh,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
think, yeah, I think it feels very relevant today in terms of that nostalgia. Like, literally, like think about this as literally people that just have the power using nostalgia to control the people and stuff that
Yeah.
don't have the power, right?
Yeah. And it's like nostalgia has become like commodified, um, for sure.
Yeah. So I think I think just one way that you can look at it today, right? I mean, 60 something years after, it came out.
Yeah. Also, just relating to the World War II aspect, I think, at least in the English narration, there are all these moments where you can kind of hear um the captors like talking, and it sounds like they're speaking German, which I
Mm.
think also kind of contributes to the idea that he's not in the past, but he's really just in his memories and in his mind. But also the fact that they're speaking German, obviously, the Nazis were experimenting on people, and they were, you know, doing all that kind of stuff in World War II. So this is, definitely it's right after World War II, so that's all relevant there.
Yeah, totally. So I think that, I think that there's a definitely a lot to interpret here, and I think you're totally right. Right, the fact that this is just after World War II, it's in the midst of the Cold War, or actually, I guess more on like the front of the Cold War. Um, yeah, I mean, there's so many different angles to look at this. Also, there's one moment that you could probably interpret 1,000 different times, which is the very intentional. I think it's the only shot with motion.
Yep. Yeah.
Uh,
The the girl of his dreams sort of laying in bed, and she kind of just blinks and looks at him, and that's it.
yeah, and any immediate thoughts on? I mean, like I said, I think there's a trillion different ways to interpret that intentional choice of solitary motion in the movie. But curious what your initial thoughts were, or I guess second
Yeah.
thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know. If I have like a super strong interpretation of it, but I guess it is sort of his place of, maybe that's sort of when he's the dream world is becoming most real to him, is when he has that relationship with the woman, and sort of feeling that love and that connection is like makes it the most real. And also maybe that's just the most important thing to him, is that like connection and in that moment. But I think it's a great image, and it's like the the what's the word? Sort of the restraint of just using it that one time, like it gives it such a strong impact, and it's a very poignant moment. I think it's very impactful.
Yeah, I 100% agree. Extremely impactful. Very
And
much.
you weren't expecting it at all.
No, no. I actually like. I needed to like check myself for a second because I was like, did that actually move? Like, I was like,
Yeah.
um, and yeah, and it kind of, it baffled me. I was left thinking about it, which is why, I mean, it makes me very curious what Chris Marker was thinking, or why to choose to do that and all that stuff, because that people are going to be thinking about it after, and trying to figure out what it's supposed to mean. And of course, maybe he just wanted it to be subjective. um, but I do also wonder, it's pretty much right in like the middle of the film, and in the first half it's all very positive. In the second half it's kind of, not right away after this, but like things start going downhill. He goes into the future, uh, and if you're interpreting this as like him getting, torture or whatever, uh, him going into the future is really like the break in sanity, right? Like, uh, that's when he's totally gone, right? He's not looking at memories
Mhm.
anymore. He's like, he's lost it, and so maybe this is like she kind of turns over and blinks or whatever. This is like the turning point of when he's the point of no return on him,
Mm.
his sanity or whatever. That was kind of my like, as I've been like grappling with and thinking about the movie, that was kind of where I was landing so far. But I,
Yeah, that. that totally makes sense. Um, that totally makes sense to me. And I really like some of the shots of like him sort of in the future and that like this otherworldly like I think it might be shots of like germs or something, but
Yeah,
it's
like
like
microscope.
exactly, but it's sort of put in a different scale. It looks like this alien world and everything. Very, very cool.
Yeah, very cool. Very feels very like I mean it's 1962. It kind of feels like it's going to influence some science fiction stuff that comes later, right? Just having kind of a one using
2001.
yeah, right, like using a cool in-camera special effect thing to show something on a different scale. Also, what just a cool design and weird looking place.
Yeah, and I will say Solaris
Mm,
might be also there. Solaris big, obviously you're a big 2001 guy. Solaris is sort of Tarkovsky's response to 2001 because in some ways he thought 2001 was like very cold and unemotional and he wanted to make like his response to it. So I think Solaris would be totally worth watching.
yeah.
Um,
Yeah. Yeah.
or
I'm in.
Steamroller and the
I'm in.
Violin since it's so much shorter.
Yeah, totally. Um yeah, I mean we're gonna get into Mirror in a second or in a few minutes, but like
Yeah.
it also it's awesome to me how much overlap there is here in themes
Yeah.
of memory and time and identity and in some ways that slipping of your identity and time um right and just so much cool stuff going on that really and both very poetic in this with like the narration sometimes kind of feeling very poetic the way that the narration is done at least reading it in the subtitles I assume this isn't just translation, but like it feels very poetic the way that it's saying things, right? Like some believe them to be themselves to be victors, not just like some people thought they were victors, right? It's like very poetic and stylized in the way that it's said. Um, and obviously in Mirror, we're gonna get into it, but like there's just poems in the movie.
Yeah.
So very yeah, lots of cool crossover. I think this is a really cool double feature. And a fair like not a super long double feature. You know, you think about double featuring like I was saying, the good fistful of dollars and a few dollars more. It's like it's a long double feature. But this you got an
Barely,
easy double feature here.
yeah, barely over 2 hours.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's pretty great pairing in that the way they're both so much about memory and yeah, how we remember things and our the subjectivity of that and everything. So
Yeah.
pretty great pairing.
Yeah, I'm thinking back like thematically. Not necessarily like obviously we've had like styles that are very similar because we have directors and stuff, but thematically, I'm not sure if we've had like a better pairing.
Yeah, yeah, I mean, that could be right. And in a topic that is so broad, like we could have picked so many different options. Like I think Star Wars is on here and also
Yeah.
like I don't know, we could have had Star Wars and Tokyo Story and it would have been like is there any connect like these are opposite ends of the spectrum. But yeah, it kind of ended up working out.
Yeah, very cool.
All right. Is there that much more to say about Logitech or should we just go into Mirror?
Yeah,
Oh,
let's just maybe drop our ratings and go into
ratings.
it. Um,
Ratings, I give 5 stars. Loved
yeah,
it.
me too.
Nice. Awesome. I'm glad you liked it so much. And I'm glad you're able to have like a unique experience with it of just going in completely not knowing anything.
Yeah, it was very unique, very when I was actually typing up my review, I typed in 4.5. And I had thought about this for a little while. I didn't just like, often sometimes I'll like sleep on a review or whatever, but I was thinking about it and finally I was going in to type it up. And I I typed in 4 point or whatever. I clicked 4.5 at first. And then by the time I finished typing out my review, I was like, what the fuck am I doing? 5 stars. This is awesome. So I can see like, I mean, with a little bit of it is a little confusing, like it's very subjective in the sense that like, also you might come out of it not really knowing at all what to think, but
Yeah.
that's valid too, like, I don't know, whatever.
Yeah.
So
It's definitely some people are just not into this kind of thing at all. But I think it's pretty fantastic. And if someone is not into experimental like movies at all, in a way, this might be a good introduction in that there is English narration, which is like intentional from the director. So you don't have to necessarily read subtitles. And it's less than 30 minutes long, and there is a story to it. I think I don't know that it's the cleanest way in because it is so subjective and kind of unclear what's going on sometimes. But it's not the worst place if you wanted to be like, check out this experimental movie to someone. I think there are worse places to start.
Yeah, I mean, I totally agree. I think it's also short, right? And
Yeah,
you're not watching like a full length experimental film.
right.
In some ways, even like Mirror might be a lot to approach, right?
Yeah,
Because I mean, it's a full length, right? And but yeah, so I think that yeah, I think you're right. Like, this is a good option to start off if you're looking at maybe getting into some of that type of stuff. And then if you don't like it, probably don't maybe don't look at more of that type of stuff. But
yeah,
yeah,
and you never know what'll. Everyone has their own taste and preferences and everything.
yeah.
So. But some
Well,
people, it's good to go into things with an open mind and try to. I try to like meet movies where they are in a little bit. Like I love La Jetée, but if I'm gonna watch the new Jackass movie, I'm not gonna expect it to be like La Jetée. That would be just stupid of me. Like,
right.
but so you know, and vice versa. If you only like Jackass movies and you watch some La Jetée, I think you should kind of be open minded and try to meet it where it is. But a lot of people don't do that. But anyway,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's just how it is, right? If you're gonna watch like, yeah, you just have to come into it understanding what you're getting into, maybe, right? Which is why like this would be a weird one to just put on, right? But that's I don't think anyone out there is gonna just like find this and put it on. Very few people, and um, yeah. So I think if if people are into this type of stuff, I think this is perfect. If they're not, this is like a good way to test it, maybe. Um, but yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people that would probably not even humor this. They'd be like, "I'm not watch. It's a slideshow. I'm not gonna watch that." Right? And like, you know, a little closed-minded, but whatever. That's how it is.
yeah.
Hopefully, if you guys are watching with us, hopefully you guys enjoyed it.
Oh yeah.
If you jumped in with us, if you didn't jump in, if you were like, it was too hard to find, I don't have the Criterion channel. I'm just gonna listen to you guys. You guys rock too. Hopefully, maybe
Yeah.
this inspired you to watch something or whatever. But
Yeah, sorry. We would have ruined the twist ending of the movie so in the future don't
yeah,
it's only 28 minutes. I mean, come on.
yeah, not maybe not the hardest one to get to jump into with us, but
Yeah.
that's okay. Well, I do have a quick rating recap before we jump into Mirror. So a weird one to do a rating recap because it is a short film, but whatever. Fuck you guys, we're doing it. So not fuck you guys. You guys are wrong.
No one said anything about it. It was never a problem.
Yeah. Sometimes I go in little arguments with myself, so
Yeah, you just all right, all right. You're next episode you're gonna have the Logitech the mask on and you're gonna be like talking to yourself just in a trance.
yeah. Yeah. Anyways.
It's 1975. I'm in the mirror.
Yeah. Help me. It has a 4.3 out of 5 on Letterboxd, 90% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes, 93% audience score, and an 8.2 out of 10 on IMDb. Not a huge difference here on the audience and critic score, but I'm a little surprised that the audience score is a little bit higher. But also, again, I don't think anyone's like watching this unexpectedly.
Yeah.
It brings it to an average of 8.775, which is really high. Not quite in our highest of all time, like top fives, but really really close. So awesome.
Nice. Good. Yeah, I mean, this is like probably one of the most acclaimed short films of all time, at least like top 10 or something like that, probably. But yeah, definitely I'm glad you liked it. I was glad to rewatch it. And I'm glad it's cool that there was a short film that still so much to talk about that it's worth, doing for the pod.
Yeah, I mean, uh, big fan of short films. So
Right? You could have watched this three times within 90 minutes. That's pretty incredible.
that's pretty awesome. I'm in for that. But Mirror is pretty awesome too, and it's not quite that short, but this is definitely not. a super long movie, so hopefully people are able to jump into this with us. And this is a bit more, um, uh, well, it might be kind of maybe like right around the same level of accessibility. Honestly, it's like this is on the Criterion Channel, I think, and then it
I
might not be super available otherwise. I don't know.
I believe it's on, or maybe not anymore, but at one point it was on HBO Max.
Cool. So yeah, I mean, you can certainly watch it.
Yeah.
Anyways,
This is,
it's
I think this one's less approachable than La Jetée, in my opinion.
I think so
Especially,
too.
well, it's longer and it does not have an English narration, which obviously most movies don't have multiple languages for narration. But yeah, it's also just very
I
it's
mean, it
tough to
also,
follow.
yeah, it's tough to follow. It uses the same actors for different roles. It uses,
Ugh.
you're not always sure if you're in a flashback or a dream uh, or whatever, right? Like,
Yeah.
there's a lot of stuff going on. It's not in chronological order. It's not in, it's super nonlinear, right? And it kind, and I would say it doesn't really all necessarily come together until the end, right? Um, and then there, obviously you kind of, if you haven't figured it out yet, you kind of figure it out at the very end. But yeah, I mean that's pretty unapproachable. You're like waiting until the end of the movie to figure out what you're watching. Yeah, it can be a
Yeah.
tough one. And there's literal poetry just
Yeah.
spoken throughout the movie. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, in terms
This
of
one,
yeah, yeah,
I'm glad you liked it so much. I mean, you really loved it. But this was your first Tarkovsky, and
yeah,
like to me, I'm like, this is almost like jumping in the deep end. It is shorter than some of his other movies, but and don't get me wrong, like Stalker's not really standard or anything. It's still pretty weird. But this one, I don't know. Anyway, you talk about how you felt about it and what was your experience with it.
yeah. I really didn't know what to expect again going in. Once we pick these movies, I try to kind of stay away from anything until after the movie, right? And then I want to dig into it and learn all about it. But I don't want to go in and for example, this is a good movie. If I just read the letterbox description, I knew I wanted to watch this. I owned this on Blu-ray, so I was like, eventually I was going to watch this movie. But the letterbox description right away, it says a dying man in his 40s recalls his childhood, his mother, the war, and personal moments that tell of and juxtapose pivotal moments in Soviet history with daily life. That is an extremely concise way to tell what's going on in this story. But this story doesn't tell you that at all, really. But at the end, maybe you can piece that all together when you see him. Spoilers, by the way, for this movie, but
Yeah.
that doesn't really piece it all together. You don't really piece it all together until the very end. So I really didn't know what was going on. I'll tell you what though, the opening you kind of see uh the you there's just a lady in a field and like a house on a fence near a field.
Yep.
Some guys walking through the field. Gorgeous cinematography, amazing
Yes.
landscape shots, amazing close-up shots, uh, just beautiful stuff going on. The sky gets this amazing color at one point um, while they're talking.
Yeah.
Really have no idea what's going on, but I'm already thrown in, loving the cinematography, loving so much about what's going on, even without really understanding it. I mean, they're talking a little about like he's trying to get directions somewhere, and he's kind of a little like he's a little pushy. He's kind of like, well, who do you live here with? Like all this stuff. Um, and yeah,
He's really an asshole. He
yeah,
walks up and he's very pushy, and then he breaks our fence, and then he just laughs and doesn't help. He just destroys their fence.
that's
And
right.
and realistically, this is like a thing that you'd remember like from childhood. You're like, what was up? Like that was so weird. Like what was up with that weird guy? And he like that. It's very weird, and it kind of doesn't tie in. I mean, I guess he's a doctor. I don't know if that plays into the guy's dying at the end, the doctor element thing, but it doesn't
Yeah.
really. I don't know.
Oh, wait, that's an interesting idea because at the end, right, there's doctors around him all the time. Even if he doesn't like consciously know that, he hears doctors talking, he thinks of a memory of a doctor or something. Yeah, that's an interesting idea.
Yeah,
Anyway, but
I
either
just thought
way, I
of it.
mean, yeah, it's genius. Either way, when I jumped into this, did not really know at all what was going on. And then Uh, God, do I remember what the next scene
Well, so I really love the opening of this movie, like with that, and then there's the wind coming through, which they actually shot. There's a cool shot of like behind the scenes with a helicopter. They just had a helicopter like create that wind, and it's right out of frame.
That's
So
cool.
there's a cool like you can find it on the internet. Um, so that is really cool with that the wind coming in like that, uh, and then there's sort of some scenes of like childhood and this movie is also very inspired by Andrei Tarkovsky's childhood, and it's sort of like the semi-autobiographical, movie kind
Mhm.
of. Um, and the next super memorable thing to me is like the barn burning down, and it's raining, and the barn is burning, and just the imagery of everything and the cinematography is incredible. And it kind of starts this motif of like fire and water, and this is like a recurring thing through the movie of like
Mhm.
fire and water often in the same shot. I don't know what it means. I don't, but it's a thing that I noticed. I was like, motif. I
Yeah.
don't have a I don't know what it means, but it keeps on showing up. But also it's just such like incredible imagery that that's probably like some of my
Yeah.
favorite parts of the movie. But yeah, and just the look of it and everything, the green, grass and leaves and everything, like it makes you want to touch grass.
Totally. Totally. Yeah, I mean, absolutely. I think also to that point of the autobiographical part, on the Criterion, there's all sorts of interviews that he does and stuff. And in one of them, he's talking to this French newscaster or whatever, and the French newscaster says, is this an autobiographical movie or a film or whatever from your experiences? And he says, you know, Tarkovsky replies that one of his favorite things about this movie is that there's no fiction. It's not every moment in it is in some ways nonfiction, and I think he
Hmm.
doesn't necessarily mean of his own life, right, but of the Soviet experience in the post-war era, right, and obviously, I'm sure a lot of it is about his own life, but
Hmm.
there's also a lot of one other interesting thing is there's a lot of like literal news footage moments
Yeah.
mixed into the film, right? Which is kind of a universal experience for for uh, Soviet children growing up at the time, right?
Yep. Yeah, and we see, World War II. We see the Chinese Communist Revolution as well. So yeah, it kind of like places things in time, but it doesn't really like it's very non-linear, so it's
Yeah,
kind of interspersed. But I guess it's also part of what you remember of what was going on in history at different times in your life.
yeah. I mean, you could kind of imagine this for like um, for parts of our experience in childhood, where there's a lot of really memorable news clips that, like, I don't even know if I actually saw uh 9/11 on the news, but I certainly know, like, I have that image in my head of a news thing where that's happening. And like I feel like, if this was what would my childhood look like through Tarkovsky's eyes here? It's like that would be one of those news clips, right?
Right, right. Yep. Also, before we get too deep into it, I think the very opening of the movie is actually this kind of weird scene of a kid who has,
Oh
or a
yeah.
young, maybe a teenager who has like a stutter, and he's sort of being in some sort of therapy situation, and the the kid says, "I can speak" at the end, like without the stutter, and then says mirror, and we have the opening credits. And it kind of, I don't really know what to make of that. I mean, yeah, but it's an interesting opening.
Yeah, it's actually, I totally forgot about that opening because one, I think that the following scenes are so cinematically appealing that like they
Yeah.
kind of stick with you. But yeah, that's a really good point. It's really bizarre. It never comes up again. It's also in black and white, which in the movie I think is only used for like dreamier sequence things, right? Like
Mostly, yeah.
yeah. I don't know. It's really hard to follow what's going on in the movie, but that was kind of, I don't know, maybe. So it's weird that that's in there, and I don't think it's, yeah, I don't think you ever see either of those characters again.
Yeah, no, you don't. And you also like there's you can see the shadow of the boom mic like really clearly, just
Yeah,
right in
right.
the shot. And so I don't know, like, was that intentional? Was that? It seems like that would have
Prop.
been intentional, but I'm
Yeah, it
like,
must.
i- is this almost supposed to be like the news footage? A lot of the news footage, pretty much all the newsreel footage we see is black and white
Right.
as well. So but I don't know if it's maybe a metaphorical thing of the I can speak like about he's speaking about his experiences or something. I don't know.
Yeah, I can tell the story now, right? Something
Yeah.
like that. Yeah. Yeah, I have no idea. That is a bizarre way to start a movie, though. I'll tell you that.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then at the end
It,
of that, you just get the black background, big white, basic font Russian text that's translated generously by subtitles into mirror, and a very bold, very minimal design for the title card too.
yeah. Yep. And yeah, it's interesting. And we do have the dream sequences. I really like the dream sequence where like there's a woman, I think it's the main character woman, played by Margarita Terrakova, who plays like these two different roles
Yeah,
of I guess the man's wife and his mom.
yeah,
So it's kind of hard to tell sometimes like who she is, where we are, what time we're in a little bit. Um, but I don't know if it's her in the scene, but like her hair is all like wet and then it comes up. And then later on there's also the scene of her like floating, which is really cool. Um, but yeah, I don't know. They're
yeah.
very poetic, very up to interpretation. I don't know that I have that's the thing with this movie. I don't know that I have a lot of interpretation about it, but it's very much about memory and experience and how we remember our lives, I think.
Yeah, right. And like, I think that's, I mean, I think especially with watching this, is this your second time watching it, Shane?
This is my second time watching it. Yes.
I think watching this movie once or twice, I think it's hard to pull a lot of interpretation out of individual moments in this because there is this much broader interpretation that you have to do of the movie of just the fact of what the hell's going on. Um,
Yeah.
which can I'm sure can be very frustrating to people. This is not a movie that I think just anyone would like. I think uh, you probably have to know that you like this type of stuff. Um, but yeah, I mean, you already have to do a lot of interpretive analysis, thinking back on these scenes after you've already watched them. So it's not like you're thinking about this necessarily while you're watching it the whole time. But at the end, you have to think back and you have to be like, oh yeah, all of these things sort of all piece together this guy's life as it builds up to now. So then there's these scenes when like, yeah, you see the lady flying or levitating or whatever, and you're like, well, that didn't really happen. What does that mean? Like how what does that mean about his state of mind or his environment at the time or what was happening to him that made that his perception? Um, yeah, I have no idea, but
Yeah.
I think that's a really hard thing for this movie on the first or even the second viewing, right?
Yeah. And there is, I think there's something to like the at one point, oh man, I don't even remember if it's the mom or the wife character, but
Yeah, played by the
she's
same person.
yeah, she says she's talking, well no, I believe it's the wife because she's talking to the main character. And a lot of the like
Right.
our kind of main character, we see a lot of things from his perspective, these POV shots. Also, there's a cool shot at the beginning of sort of we're just wandering through his home, and there's an Andrei Rublev poster
Yeah,
on the wall. So
that's
it's
right.
like you can tell how autobiographical it is. And not to mention that Tarkovsky died like only about 11 years later. And he like basically pretty much he died of cancer, and I think it was uh at least partially caused by the filming of Stalker. They
Mm.
filmed in like certain like radioactive areas, and a lot of people who worked on the movie ended up dying of cancer like years later. So I don't, but it's kind of interesting. He makes this like movie reflecting on his life, 10 years prior, but he does die, pretty young. I think he was in his 50s, when he died. But my point is, there's a scene where she talks about the burning bush in the Bible, and she's like, "Who did the burning bush appear to?" And he's like, "Oh, it's Moses." And she says, "Why don't things like that ever happen to me?" And I think that is kind of like crucial to it, where it's these daily small interactions, and there isn't necessarily these miraculous things that happen like in our daily lives, and sometimes the dreams are more miraculous than like our daily lives in that way. So I think some like the mundanity of certain aspects of it is kind of part of the point.
Yeah.
But yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. I also think, you know, to your point about like the mundanity of everything that's going on, there's an interesting thing that I'm thinking about just literally off the top of my head. But going back to what you were talking about earlier too, with there's the doctor in this scene, it's like she's talking about this thing from the Bible and why does this not happen to me and all this stuff. It's like, you know, if someone's on their deathbed and you're with them, like what are things that you're gonna that they if even if they're unconscious, what's going on around them, right? People are probably talking about God and the Bible. There's doctors, right? Things like this. So in some ways, right, like the things that he's thinking about at the end, if these are all just memories that he's thinking about at the end, right? They maybe reflect not just everything from his life, but also all these things happening literally just right when he's dying, right? Doctors are coming in, people are talking about God, all this stuff. Um, and so I think that's an interesting piece here where I wonder if you could just like go through this movie and like piece together like, oh, okay, a doctor's entering the room, like actually piece together the the scene at the end through kind of
Mm,
key things going on in the in the shots. I kind of doubt it, but I think that's an interesting thing that maybe is there.
yeah, yeah. I see what you're saying. Yeah.
Um,
And Tarkovsky was like Russian Orthodox Christian, and but he's making movies in the Soviet Union, so he can't really like
right.
talk about that explicitly in his movies. Like even in the Steamroller and the Violin, there's a moment where the kid plays the violin, and he practices in an old church that's like been converted into some kind of other thing because a lot of churches were either destroyed or like converted into whatever community buildings or whatever in the Soviet Union. But there's still like it is still a church, and like the way that he films the while the kid is playing, there is this almost like, divine or like transcendent moment where art can be this transcendent force that connects us to like spiritually with you know, with the spirit realm almost, I guess, and with God. And it's kind of like reflected in there. And then I think it's also in this, and maybe in that's sort of those poetic moments and the dreamlike moments are that sort of like transcendence and elements going on there. And obviously with the burning bush, there's also the motif of the fire like
Right.
throughout the movie. So I don't know if that all connects as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an interesting thing too, right? Like fire can represent, right? Like cremation and stuff too can represent this idea of like uh cleansing or um like re allowing things to be regrown or restarting or something like that, right? So um it's kind of a transitional thing, right? You're taking a building and you're burning it down, now you have empty space, right? And uh you have this, you know, in a way at the end, right? He's this big building full of things that's getting burned away, right? And so I can definitely see why fire, yeah, it's chosen as a motif here. And same with water. I think water also has a lot of that same like symbolic
Yeah.
relevance, right? Of like cleansing and stuff.
Yeah, definitely. So yeah, I don't know. This movie, like, I don't have like a lot of I
Yeah,
think that it's not intended to be like easily interpreted. I think it is kind of just in more of an artistic expression of like Tarkovsky's experiences and like trying to uh express like what memory and what life is like and what looking back on your life is like and how memories you know, how it feels to remember things, which is obviously connects with Logitech too. But so yeah,
yeah,
this movie like I don't know. It's just a little. It's very open to interpretation, and I think that's intentional. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I will say one other connection to La Jetée is that La Jetée in many ways is, you know, I think it uses still images as a motif, obviously, but like also as a symbolic motif of like art, right? And art being like you were talking about, maybe like a um sort of a, a transcendent piece, right? And so in that, there's the art of still imagery that kind of works as this transcendent piece that brings him into memories and all these things uh and stuff like that, potentially at the end of his life, who knows, or end of his sanity maybe. But and here you have like the poems and all that kind of bringing him to the end, which is
Yeah,
interesting.
yeah, and there's like also the moments of the kid like reading that book out like in nature, and yeah, like art and nature are definitely big themes like in the movie and in a lot of Tarkovsky stuff, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So here's an interesting sort of anecdote, I guess, from Alexander Mishurin, who's one of the screenwriters for this, who has a big like 40-minute interview on the Criterion disc for this movie that I watched, and he talks a lot about the making of this movie. Where there's a couple of quick anecdotes I want to give just because I thought they were kind of funny. One being a lot of this movie was written before Tarkovsky went to go make Solaris, and the state like told him he had to make Solaris. That was like they were like, "Hey, you need to make this because this 2001 thing," like so obviously in some ways like it's his response too, like because he made it, but also yeah, the Soviet Union wanted a response to that movie, right? So they kind of pushed. I mean, he might not have been able to be at this made at the time, anyways, but they certainly pushed this back a little bit because of that. And then once this was done, the Soviet Union was like, you guys have to try to sell that for more than War and Peace because it's weird, it's artsy, whatever, right? Like they were not into it. They didn't think it would sell, so they were like, here's a huge price tag, and then it sold, and they were like, great, all that money goes to the state. And in the interview, Mishurin said that he and Tarkovsky each got like 900 uh, rubles or whatever.
Jeez.
Uh, and so there was a lot of like it. You could feel a lot of maybe tension in the post production and even the pre production of getting this made in that state, right? And under that uh, government, um,
Yeah.
which is tough. But
Yeah, that sucks. Uh yeah. Yeah. Supposed to be allegedly for the workers, and then you completely screw over the people who make the movie. So
yeah,
yeah, that's how the Soviet Union went. Especially, I mean, they were in the 70s, so it's a lot, so much longer, and Soviet Union had devolved so much.
yeah,
Um, so yeah, definitely a lot. Tarkovsky, making his movies, like I think he faced a lot of, you know, like just a lot of adversity in trying to get things made like how he wanted them, and with how the strictness of the Soviet Union and whatever, them wanting
yeah,
to censor and his art and all basically.
yeah. But one funnier piece of a tidbit that he was talking about
Mhm.
was that at one point after they had made this, after they'd filmed everything, they were trying to piece it all together, and they knew they wanted some sort of nonlinear structure, but they weren't really sure how to make it flow. They watched it once, like in a way that they had originally written it or whatever, and they were both kind of like that didn't work. And so they made this like big quilt thing with pockets, 34 whatever, how many pockets for every scene, right? And they just kind of randomly put them all in until they liked, and they would move things around until it all made more sense to them. And I think that's just absolutely hilarious considering the absolute like non-linearity of this movie, right? It's like they took this giant sheet of stuff and organized it quote unquote organized it until they found a specific orientation of all these things that they thought flowed better than their first one.
Hmm.
And it's like I what is that first one? I wonder how that one
Yeah.
looked and like what made them decide this was the right one. I mean, I'm glad for it because I think this did work really well for me, but uh it just feels very bizarre that that's how they decided on scene. I'm
Yeah.
sure there's a little bit of, this was many years after that this interview happened, so I'm sure there's a little bit of you talk up the process a little bit, right? You tell a good joke
Yeah.
about it, but yeah, crazy.
The yeah, yeah. And that is like I mean, at least I've seen like people putting scenes on sort of like note cards or like index cards and putting
Mm.
them like on a wall. I think David Lynch would use note cards a lot for like scenes as just trying to figure out the structure. And I know Nicholas Winding Refn used note cards like that when making Only God Forgives. There's a behind the scenes like documentary directed by his wife, and you can see him like has everything on the wall and it's like each scene, put in order on that. But this one, like being in a quilt, is like also kind of poetic in that the movie is very much like a quilt. I feel like where we're kind of
Mm.
jumping around and it's so non-linear. Yeah, kind of that's
Yeah,
cool. That's a cool anecdote. Hmm.
yeah. So definitely recommend anyone out there that watched it um, to jump into if you have the criterion, jump into some of those special features. Uh, you know, whatever. There's some cool stuff in there, I think, and that can always be worthwhile to watch.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. Um, yeah, cool. I don't know. There's also like there's the scene of her like thinking she made a mistake in the newspaper, and she's kind of that's kind of maybe the most exciting scene, and then
Mhm.
it kind of like turns out, oh, there wasn't actually a mistake in it. But that's kind of an interesting
Yeah.
scene. Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking of the order of scenes, right? I think like essentially in the beginning you have the the kind of beautiful scene that has the doctor and maybe doesn't fully make a lot of sense on what's going on in the plot, but then you have and then you have the fire, and then you have this. I think that right after that's this kind of exciting scene of her trying to figure out what went wrong with the printing press thing. Um, and so it makes sense, I think, in the beginning to kind of have that kind of more exciting stuff to help guide people into the movie.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah. That makes sense. Um, one thing I thought was cool I have here written down, there's like uh newsreel footage of like a dead soldier, and then the next shot is you see the soldier filming that soldier like from the previous shot. You like get like
Oh,
this meta shot of the person filming the shot that we had just seen. So I imagine that was like actual newsreel footage, but I mean, who knows if it might not have been, I don't know, but that was a cool shot.
yeah, that's interesting. Somehow I don't remember that I remember the
it
body, and then I don't remember that. But
It's very short. It's very quick.
yeah,
Yeah, and it's kind of in that like World War II like newsreel section.
yeah. There's probably a poem being read at the time, so I'm trying to follow on the subtitles or something. Um,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. Also, the poetry in this is funny because poetry itself is a very interpretive art, right?
yeah,
Um, and and so you're hearing the Russian, you're reading the English. It's poetry, so you're trying to make some sort of small, minimal interpretations, but there's also stuff going on the screen, and you're my God, there's a lot in this movie. Uh,
yeah, yeah. It's a lot going on. I will say, I guess I don't know if I just don't have that much to say about it because it's
yeah,
like so it's very whatever, I don't know, hard to understand in some ways or hard to put into words, which is also kind of the point of movies. You watch the movie and it's a kind of the experience. If you could explain it all in words, then why make the movie? Um, but this is as of the ones I've seen, which I have not seen Nostalgia or The Sacrifice, which are his last two movies. This is my least favorite Tarkovsky movie, but aside from he did a student film short film called The Killers, which is based on the whatever. Wait, is it It's not Dostoevsky. I don't remember. Anyway, whatever. It's Ernest Hemingway, The Killers. Anyway, but that's like super amateurish short film. But yeah, and I still really like it. I gave it 4 stars this time around. I love the cinematography. I think it's great. I just find it hard to connect to, and like I kind of watch it and I'm like, I don't. it's just hard for me to connect to. So it's
Mhm.
hard for me to put it on. And that is also just a sign of, okay, 4 stars is actually the lowest rated of all the movies I've seen of his, which is kind of incredible. Like how
Yeah.
impeccable that is. So yeah, this one I just it goes so in far into the, up to interpretation that I just by the end
Yeah.
I'm like, it was beautiful. I really liked it, but I just am not able to fully like love it. It's not one of my like favorites.
Yeah. I can understand what you're saying. I think I had a much different experience in some ways where right when I finished the movie, I texted you and I said, this might be one of my favorite movies of all time.
Yeah.
This thing was beautiful, it was awesome, it was weird and bizarre and interpretive and I want to watch it again and again and again. Um and I want to watch every single possible special feature out there that talks about this movie. Um, yeah, this was really really cool. Uh, like I said, I watched Ivan's Childhood right after this. It
Yeah.
it it, it makes me just know that I have to dive into the rest of this stuff because this was amazing. I can't imagine that he has a movie that's less like accessible, not in how to watch it. Like I think whatever. But in terms of like what's going on in the movie, like
Right.
this seems like a very weird movie in some ways, and so
I
yeah.
think, yeah, of the ones I've seen, probably Stalker is the most similar to this type of thing, which is the movie he made right after this. But I feel the way you feel about this, I kind of feel about Stalker. And
Okay,
I
cool.
think Stalker might have been my first one that I had actually no. I think Ivan's Childhood is the first one I've seen, which which is great. I'm curious what because I know you gave Mirror 5 stars.
I did.
Did
Yes.
what did you give Ivan's Childhood?
I haven't rated Ivan's Childhood yet
Mm,
because I'm kind I've been thinking a lot about Ivan's Childhood um in a way in which like I think it's probably one of the best anti-war movies I've ever seen, and it looks really awesome. Like it looks really great, and it's clearly very well made. And uh, anyways, so a lot of stuff, and I'm just not really sure where it lands for me in terms of 4.5, 5. Uh, I'm honestly at this point, I'm probably just gonna slap a 4.5 on it and call it a day. Um, but
yeah,
yeah, it's kind of so. Anyways, sometimes in that range, I'm just like, I don't know what to do, so I'm just sitting on it for a little while and stuff. So that's kind of where I'm at with Ivan's Childhood right now. But
gotcha.
it was great. I was ecstatic to have finally watched it or to have watched it. It's one of his that I really didn't even know much about until actually it was in the special features in this movie where it was mentioned so many times. And so I was like, well, it's time to uh, uh, put up or shut up or whatever, And so I found it on
Yeah,
Canopy and put it on. So,
nice,
uh,
nice. Cool.
but
Yeah. Yeah, I'm glad you like this so much.
yeah,
Uh
the only other thing I'll say about this movie is I feel like this movie, in some ways, has some similarities to The Life of Chuck, um, in the sense that plot
this
wise,
guy's a chuckhead.
the you figure out, spoilers for The Life of Chuck here. Life of Chuck, also about someone on their deathbed, kind of revisiting memories from their past, and it has a a sort of non-linear structure, a non-linear structure, certainly more linear somehow than this, but
Oh yeah,
uh,
definitely.
definitely right. But it's still told in a weird way, and it's not really clear for a while what's really going on. I think it's a movie where I've shown it to a lot of people. The first time I show it to some people, they're like, "What the fuck did you just show me?" But I think that it's if you I think once you understand what's going on, I think there's a lot of
Yeah.
interpretation that you can do in the movie. I think that The Life of Chuck is not as good as this movie. And I think this movie is just kind of a more uh I don't want to say artsy necessarily, but like a more I don't know, a more stylistic or a more like unique approach to that type of story.
Yeah. I think the look is so, the cinematography in this movie is so
Yeah,
beautiful that the Life of Chuck maybe is a little more standard looking. It's still pretty well shot, but
yeah,
I see the connections for sure. Yeah, and they're both
yeah,
two of your favorite movies.
yeah. I know it's insane. I've watched both these movies for the first time in the past couple of years, and I'm like, man, what's happening to me? Am I never mind. That's it. I
Oh,
don't
yeah. You need to watch every movie about someone remembering looking back on their life on
yeah,
their
on their
deathbed. Is
deathbed.
that common? I don't know if there are a lot of movies.
I found two.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. That's your niche.
Yeah. But so anyways, point being though, I guess I did just spoil the Life of Chuck. But if you liked this movie and you haven't seen the Life of Chuck, I think it's worth watching, even knowing the whole gist of it. I think it's still worth watching. But anyways, yeah, so I give this 5 stars. Uh we can rating recap real quick. Um
Sure. Yeah, I gave it 4 stars. I said that earlier, but just saying it again for some reason.
it has the same rating as La Jetée on Letterboxd, which is a 4.3 out of 5. It has 100% critic score on Rotten Tomatoes and a 91% audience score and a 7.9 out of 10 on IMDb, bringing it to an 8.9 out of 10 average for us, which is in our top 5 of all time. It beats out, there's a few things tied at the 8.875 range, Metropolis being one of them. And so now it's beat that out. It's just under Paris, Texas in our highest recaps of all time, which is awesome. This
Yeah.
movie
So what
deserves it.
so what's the is Paris, Texas number one and this is number two? Oh.
No, no, that's so Paris, Texas is number 4. So number 1
Ah.
in our highest recaps of all time is Rear Window at 9.175 out of 10. Then Spirit Away at 9.15 out of 10. Project Hail Mary, which at the time was had a recap of 9 out of 10. Paris, Texas had an 8.925 out of 10, and this has the 8.9 zero. So
Yeah. Pretty strong field. And yeah, that's just the average between Rotten Tomatoes, IMDb, and Letterboxd, not
yeah,
including our ratings.
right. Our rating recap, it's a little odd in that way because like, obviously Rotten Tomatoes is just thumbs up, whatever. But yeah, we just that's what we've been doing, so we just keep track of that.
Yeah, it's kind of a cool like little, I don't know, metric,
Yeah.
I guess, of the general consensus of it, kind of mixing the critics and the, audience different places. But all right, cool. Mirror. Well, I'm glad you liked
Mirror.
it so much. You're a Tarkovsky head.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're gonna be going into what do they call? I forget. Really haven't seen soccer, so I don't know. I think it's the zone. Yeah, the zone. You're gonna be going into the zone soon enough.
This is a 10-star episode for me, which is pretty cool.
Oh yeah, double fives. Nice.
So
Awesome.
yeah. Very awesome episode.
Sick.
Glad we did it.
Nice. Yeah, and glad they paired so well. Um, does that mean are we done? Do we pick our topic for our next full episode?
That's right. It's time to pick our topic. So
All right.
yeah, if you guys
I
follow along. Oh yeah, go ahead.
I want to say before we get into it, the next episode, well, we're super excited. The Odyssey. We're doing it. Our next episode will probably come out a couple days late, but we're going to be seeing the Odyssey. We've got our tickets. You have your tickets, right?
I do. Yeah.
All right, we got our tickets. We're gonna get our episode out pretty much as soon as we can. Hopefully, maybe over opening weekend at some point.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm super hyped about that.
Yeah, that's gonna be a blast. Yeah, we're both seeing it Thursday night, but if you've been watching if you've been watching the show, we usually try to release on Thursdays. Other than when a movie comes out on Thursday, sometimes we want to pump it out real quick. So here we go. We're gonna
Yeah,
watch on Thursday night. We're gonna record it as soon as possible. We're gonna release it over the weekend.
yeah.
And
This one technically will be late,
yes,
but rather than early. Sometimes we'll do it early. Whatever. Anyway, the episode will come out. People, it's all good. We're hyped about it. And then we'll do our next full episode. I have this cup here. If you're watching on YouTube, I'll pick a topic, and then we'll each pick a movie from it at some point, and we'll cover that. And then the week after, we have Spider-Man Brand New Day. So that's right. We don't only do the artsy fartsy stuff over here. We're also doing the new Spider-Man. So we have
Yeah.
range.
Yeah. Also, if you go back and look at our list, we've if you want to watch a crazy episode, go back and watch our episode that we did on the bottom 250 of Letterbox, where we watched the War of the Worlds movie,
With Ice Cube.
with Ice Cube. Yeah, not yeah. And Cats from 2019. So we have range. We talked about all sorts of stuff on this show.
Yes, maybe don't watch those movies, but you could at least watch or listen to the episode about them. It might maybe it would be more fun, but it might be more entertaining. Um,
Yeah. Also, if you have recommendations for movies for us to cover, our half episodes, sometimes we have some flexibility there. So feel free to drop a comment somewhere. We're
yeah,
on all the apps and all that stuff, but let's figure out what we're going to be watching for next time.
yeah, and we've done some fun like top fives and
Yeah.
tier lists stuff like that. So our half episodes are a little like free. We can kind of do whatever we want, but our full episodes we have the category cup, and I'm picking. I never know. I close my eyes, so I never know if the thing is in front of the camera or I might just look like an idiot every single episode. Who knows?
I just let it happen.
Ooh, we've got a great topic for our next episode. The late great Philip Seymour Hoffman.
Oh, nice. Wow.
So there we go.
Wow.
We'll each pick a movie starring Philip Seymour Hoffman. He's been in a lot of movies, sometimes lead roles, a lot of great, supporting roles as well. One of the great actors of
Yeah.
at least one of the great American actors of like recent times.
Awesome. This will be great.
Cool.
Yeah. And this is another one where we have a lot of options, which is cool. So,
Yeah. Yeah, we got a lot of options, a lot of good options. And cool. At the end of the Odyssey episode, we'll announce what our choices are for our Philip Seymour Hoffman episode. So that'll be cool. A lot of good ones. We got like, I mean, just off the top of my head, we got like The Master, Big Lebowski, Punch Drunk Love. Those are all supporting. Well, no, not The Master. That's kind of a main role. But I mean, there's other stuff. I haven't seen Capote. Maybe I'd pick that. I think he's in Doubt. A lot of great movies. But all right, cool. I guess
yeah.
is that the end of the episode? I feel like it just happened real quick.
Yeah. Well, I guess, these two movies were a little bit hard to talk about. So,
Yeah,
in some ways, there's a lot to talk about, and in other ways, there's not a lot to talk about. So that's it.
cool. Well, yeah, stick around. Give us a 5-star rating on the podcast apps if you enjoyed. We would appreciate it. Thank you all for listening. We appreciate anyone who listens to our episodes. And yeah, you can follow us on Letterboxd. If you type "Mind Your Movies," all one word, you can follow our account there. And both of our individual accounts are linked in the bio, and you can follow us there. We all, we're on YouTube, podcast apps, all that stuff. So yeah, thank you all for watching and listening. Don't fall too far into your memories and try to escape reality too much by falling into your memories. But don't forget to mind your movies.